hit record. And now that we're recording, I'll formally officially bring this meeting to order at 3:02 p.m. We have Amy Stark, Kathy Kenton, Jason Vieira, Judy Holliday, and Chuck Preto, as well as myself on the board here today. So we'll open up with, we'll table the minutes for the moment. Kathy and I have some housekeeping to take care of. But if there's anyone here with non-agenda public comment, now is the time. If anyone has non-agenda public comment, that's not my cat. I think that this is your time to shine. Hearing none, we can jump into government reports. First up is the mayor's office, and the mayor's office is not physically here today. I did get an email from Kohta that I can read the highlights from right now. It says, I'm in back-to-back, so I won't be in attendance this afternoon. The only thing I wanted to highlight is the rollout of our budget, which was announced this past Friday. Please see below for additional info and updates on other relevant events. As always, please urge members to reach out with any questions, comments, or concerns. And this says, regarding the height limit, this item will be heard at Rules Committee today at 2 p.m. to hopefully reballot for this November. Also, Land Use and Housing Committee will hear the sports arena item tomorrow at 2 p.m. With an expected full council hearing date in May. I think this is a typo actually in Kohta's email. That meeting starts at 1 p.m. tomorrow for Land Use and Housing.
Oh, good.
But his email says 2. It says, regarding the sprung shelter, as you've discussed, hopefully you'll have, sorry, it says, not sure how much you guys have communicated to your members, meaning this board, but as we've discussed, meaning Kohta and I, hopefully we'll have time for the mayor's office to give a presentation at our May meeting. All entities involved are willing to meet with the planning group leadership beforehand to get everyone on the same page. As far as other highlights, it says last week, Mayor Todd Boyer released his fiscal year 2023 $4.8 billion ready to rebuild proposed budget. Full press release is attached. The ready to rebuild will make key investments in repairing aging infrastructure, improving the speed and quality of San Diego services, forcing new regulations, enhancing pay and facilities for police, lifeguards, and firefighters, addressing homelessness, and ensuring employee compensation is competitive in order to fill vacancies in key roles that deliver critical services to San Diegans. I'll forward you the rest of this detail as well as the attached proposed budget, but that's what Kohta's given us. And moving on, I don't see Makana from the D2 office. I don't see Officer Surwilo. I don't see Lisa. I don't see Ashley from the airport, but we do have Rebecca Smith with us from Tara Lawson Reamer's office. Rebecca, hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, how are you doing?
Doing well.
Great to be here with you. Rebecca here, if I don't know you, here on behalf of Supervisor Lawson Reamer's office. Just have a couple quick announcements from the county side. So many of us are stretched thin between paying for food, rent, and other necessities. Addressing this is a huge priority for Supervisor Lawson Reamer. Last month, the county voted to approve her proposal to make the county work for all. This new plan will help county staff to work faster, more effectively, and more inclusively to serve the nearly 1 million county residents that are enrolled in self-sufficiency programs. So it rolls back some of the red tape that was imposed under the previous county boards that blocked eligible residents from accessing food and financial assistance programs such as CalFresh, Medi-Cal, CalWorks, and General Relief. If you're not enrolled in one of these programs yourself, odds are you know someone that is and that will benefit from this vote. That's because nearly 1 out of 3 people in the San Diego region are enrolled in a self-sufficiency program that's operated by the county. This is one of the first policies that Supervisor Lawson Reamer proposed when she took office last year. And thanks to the many San Diego County residents who wrote the board in support, San Diego County is going to become a little bit more affordable for our neighbors that are in need. Finally, we want to hear from you if your nonprofit or small business was impacted by COVID. That's because you might be eligible for some grant funding. We held a D3 grant workshop earlier this month. If you weren't able to join and want to watch the recorded video of this event, I'll put the link in the chat below. You can also email Cipriano Vargas, who's our grant administrator. He's happy to have one-on-one meetings with you and walk you through the eligibility and application process. And that sums up my my announcements for the day. Feel free to send me any questions or follow up. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Rebecca. Does anyone have any questions for the D3 County Office? Hearing none, we'll move on. I don't see Cole, but I do see Rachel Granadino from Assemblymember Chris Ward's office. Hello, Rachel, how are you?
Hi, good, DK. Thanks for having me, everyone. My name is Rachel Granadino, and I'm with, oh my gosh, I'm a district representative with Assemblymember Ward's office. I've got all tongue-tied today. As I'm sure you know, our office is working hard on passing legislation in Sacramento. Some bills that might be of interest to you are AB 2120, which is a bill meant to help close the funding gap to fix our local bridges. One of the closest bridges to Midway that this bill would affect is the Mission Bay Bridge, which I'm sure you all have seen and can attest might need a little extra funding to complete. Another bill that might be of interest is AB 1675, which is a bill meant to streamline the certification process for out-of-state teachers who are relocating because their spouse is in the military. COVID-19 has been hard on many different sectors, and education is no exception. This bill will hopefully help our schools close their workforce shortage and overall streamline the process for our military families. The final bill I would like to highlight is AB 2316, which is our community solar bill. If passed, the bill will establish a cost-effective alternative to adding solar to each individual home. Instead, it would allow for a lot to be used essentially as a solar farm for individuals to share the cost burden or be utilized by households who, for whatever reason, cannot install solar on their own residence, like apartment complexes or condos. If you would like to see a full list of our bills, it is available on our website. Additionally, we are in budget season again, and we are taking requests from several different entities for funding. That process is about to be finalized at the end of this month. And then, as always, if you're having any issues with any state-related agencies, EDD, DMV, ABC, you name your acronym, please feel free to reach out. Our office is always happy to help. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
I had a very random question, not necessarily pertaining to what you've just said, but the Real ID, is that still a thing in the state of California?
Yes, that is. I believe there was a postponement at the federal level for an additional year, but that is still a thing. And you should be trying to get your Real ID, and would help streamline the process for it flying. So that way you don't have to use your passport, but a passport would be suitable to fly. I believe that's correct.
And that's for domestic flights, you would need one.
Yes, domestic flights, you would need one.
Copy that. Thank you. Any other questions for Rachel? Okay, hearing none, we will move on. I don't see anyone from Scott Peters' office, but I do know we have Muska here today from the Navy. Muska, do you have an update for us?
I sure do, actually. I'm sure you have seen some news articles, Voice of San Diego, on the new statement that went out from City, SANDAG, and Navy Region Southwest on OTC revitalization. So I will start by saying that the Navy's efforts to revitalize Naval Base Point Loma's OTC and NAVWAR facilities remain a high priority for us. NAVWAR's mission is critical to national security in San Diego, is critical to NAVWAR successfully meeting its mission requirements. So we appreciate the strong support from San Diegans for the Navy in general, and this important project in particular. The Navy continues our extensive collaboration with SANDAG on numerous projects throughout the region. SANDAG is the expert when it comes to planning, transportation, activities, and our team works with them daily and will continue to work with them on this project and other projects we have throughout the area. SANDAG remains a critical partner in all of Navy's regional planning efforts, and and any redevelopment of the OTC side will require ongoing close collaboration with SANDAG. The Navy has always maintained that if SANDAG determined that OTC is not best location for the Central Mobility Hub, the Navy's preferred alternative would still allow for a mixed-use development as analyzed in the draft EIS with a transit option. The inclusion of a transit center on OTC remains in 2 of Navy's 5 proposed alternatives. Maintaining transit access for staff and sailors working in OTC is important, and Navy will continue to work closely with SANDAG to ensure transit is considered in the development of the site. Maybe not a transit central mobility hub, but a transit stop or some sort of transit center is still something we would like in our on OTC, and then again, we'll continue to analyze as a part of 2 of our alternatives. I want to reiterate that our preferred alternative is still a high density mixed use development with a transit option. And SANDAG remains a cooperating agency as we work through our NEPA analysis towards a final EIS. The US Navy is updating the OTC revitalization project timeline, however, and the sequence of events. This update is in response to public comments received on draft EIS, requesting additional details before a record of decision is signed. The timeline for our project will solidify once the Navy identifies and work with a potential master developer to provide a prospective site plans before finalizing the EIS. Some members of the public and public agencies, such as the Coastal Commission and the California State Historic Preservation Office, requested more specifics on how a commercial developer might design and develop the site under alternative 2 through 5. The specific information requested, such as the scale of the development, the type of uses, and the potential mix and location of those uses across the site, can only be determined once the Navy starts working with a developer. The Navy anticipates issuing a competitive solicitation in this year in 2022, request for qualifications, request for proposals. And then the Navy will work with the potential developer on multiple options for the private development of the site, while continuing to evaluate the feasibility of a NAVWAR only development funded by traditional military construction methods. There will be additional opportunities for public involvement before a final EIS and a record of decision are published. I don't have a specific timeline for you today, as once the Navy's RFP goes out and we have a master developer on board, we will have a better idea of what that future development will look like. And from there, fine tune our environmental analysis, provide additional details to the agencies who need to make these determinations, and then address those specific impacts. So once we do have a developer on board, we will have a clearer picture of the timeline. But for now, all I can say is that we will have that RFP process this year in 2022 and still pursuing a high density mixed use development. That's all I have, DJ.
Okay, thank you very much. I see Kathy's hand is up. Kathy, go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Muska. Thank you for that update. In terms of the master developer, is it the Navy's intention then to actually select that developer at this point after this RFP process, and then move forward with a specific developer, or is it just to kind of figure out what you might do?
I believe at this point it is just to figure out what the road ahead looks like. My understanding is that it's not necessarily the same developer. However, I can get those clarifications. It's still very much work in progress, and our team is working on it. But that is my understanding at this point. But again, Kathy, I will verify that during the next meeting and get back to you if that answer changes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, did anyone else have any questions for, oh yeah, Judy, go ahead.
Muska, first, thank you so much for the great update. I know we've all been curious, where that is. So the RFP is going to go out before the end of this year?
Yes, we're planning to send out the RFP pretty much as soon as the team is ready. So pretty soon, but definitely before the end of this year, because we do want to move this process forward. We have been saying that these facilities are critical to Naval and they need them yesterday.
Yeah.
So we are eager to move this process as fast as we can. So we are cognizant of that timeline, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we are thorough in our analysis and we follow these processes accurately.
Right. Thank you. And also, just for clarity, you mentioned the options 2 through 5. Option 1 was just the Navy developing without an outside partnership of any type. Is that correct?
That is correct. Using the military construction dollars,
Okay.
which is a competitive process. Not just Naval Base Point Loma, but all the Navy bases, there is a process where we put in our projects and there's a priority system, and then very few projects get funded, but we will continue to pursue that in option 1.
Okay, so that's still on the table. And
absolutely.
Okay, and would that also include a mobility? I know not mobility hub, which personally I was glad to hear that the central thing was probably off the table for this area. But just for clarity, if you go with option 1 for some reason, you still will have some kind of a a station of some sort connecting, the naval base there with the airport and other parts of the city. That's still gonna be part of that? Is that correct?
That's always the goal. And it's not just for Old
Okay.
Town campus. We always pursue transit options for our other bases.
Okay.
I continuously work with SANDAG, with MTS to get additional transit stops to sub base, to OTC. We're always pursuing different transit options. So even with the Milcon option, we will always work with SANDAG to ease the traffic congestion in the area for the military and the community.
Good, that's good. I just wanted to clarify, make sure I understood that correctly. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Jason.
Yeah, Muska, I was just going to say just a simplified kind of, zoomed out version. So there probably will be no public comment response until an RFP is released, which is probably, again, goal for still by the end of the year. And we have a little bit more feedback from a developer.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Thanks for confirming.
Yeah, and
the update.
I think this group has mostly asked all of my questions. So thank you, Muska, for that update. And obviously, you know where to find us when there's more information available.
Absolutely, and you know where to find me.
Certainly. Okay, I know Lisa did join us. Sorry that we breezed past you, Lisa, but welcome. And if you had an update for the group, now would be an appropriate time.
Hi. I just didn't want you to think I'd forgotten about you.
Oh, no.
It was like somehow didn't find the link. So thank you, DK, for sorting that out. Not a lot of updates. The harm reduction shelter is about 98% occupied, 42 out of 44 beds. That population's been fairly stable. Occasionally it will go up, but we've also had a couple of positive exits to other programs. So, we want to see beds turn over in that way, right? We don't want to see people just sort of cycling in and out, but we want to see people moving on to other projects. So that is going fairly well. Let me see if I can pull up some additional data for you that I had on my screen. So we've had a couple exits to other shelters and a couple exits to permanent supportive housing as well since that shelter opened. So glad to see that movement. And like I said, at about 98% as of this morning. And we also have the Sea Heart team engaging in other clients that will potentially on the list for getting into that shelter as those beds turn over.
Perfect. Thank you. I had a quick question actually relating to what you've just said, and it has to do, I guess, with this revolving concept. So you've just said that currently at 98% capacity, which is wonderful. I guess a twofold question. One, is there a backlog or maybe like a waiting list, which sounds like there might be? And then 2, if you can talk a little bit more about those exits to the permanent supportive housing, Um, 42 people currently there today, but what is the, I guess, the rate of, I guess, transit through your facility into permanent supportive housing?
Yeah, no, really appropriate questions. So yeah, 42 people as of today. When we talk about flow through, to talk about wait list, we don't necessarily maintain a wait list for that shelter, but the Sea Heart team, the community harm reduction team, works with folks that are in unsheltered state, or if potentially they're ready for shelter, but there's not a bed there and they want to access another shelter in the system, they can access any shelter bed in the system. So it might be that they might be somewhere else for a while, but that Sea Heart team will still continue to work with them. So regardless of where that person goes, the Sea Heart team will continue to provide case management services to them. So rather than maintain like an actual waiting list for the shelter, the Sea Heart team just kind of monitors who's on their caseload and when beds open up, who would be the next best to transition into that space. As far as transitions out, we expect folks to take a little while to stabilize. This is a harm reduction approach, so we expect them to have slightly higher needs in regards to substance use disorder or in regards to residential treatment needs. So we don't expect quick movement in and out of this shelter. I would say on average, just to give you an idea, average length of stay for folks in the traditional shelter system exiting to permanent housing is anywhere from 90 to 120 days. Feels like it's taking a little bit longer than it used to these days. And that's the case for anything that's what we would call a tenant-based program. And a tenant-based program means that we're using housing subsidy and case management to access a unit in the private sector, so the private rental market. I think most of us know that the private rental market is going up pretty fast right now and has very, very low vacancy rates. So it's taking a little longer to get people into those kind of resources. And then when big resources, for instance, the Father Joe's St. Teresa of Calcutta project that just came online downtown, when we get big influxes of resources like that, we'll see a lot of exits out of our system. So I think a few actually went there, but I don't have the specific exit locations. So not expecting a lot of movement into permanent supportive housing. We expect stabilization first. And I think over time, that's going to start to kind of pick up as we get people connected to resources. But we also do know that some folks will go in and out a few times, right? So folks that have actually exited out of the Midway area into that shelter, you might find 8 days later are back unsheltered again. The Sea Heart team, the Alpha team will try to get them back involved, see if they can get them back in. So we understand that it might take several engagements before something sticks, which is kind of why the Sea Heart team is focused in like specific areas and trying to like reconnect when they maybe don't stabilize the first time.
Totally. No, that makes sense. And no, we appreciate the work you're doing. Kathy, I see your hand up.
Hi, yes. So Lisa, I just had a question. Are you able to speak to the Sprung project, the tent project? Because this group hasn't, other than what we've, basically heard on the news, have not been briefed on it. Really don't have a lot of information.
Yes, I had a feeling that might come up. I just had a sense. So very fair question. I can't speak to it a lot right now, just because we are still in the midst of a competitive procurement process. So what I can speak to is fairly limited. What we have done is, on behalf of the City of San Diego, the Housing Commission released an RFP in early March. We received that, closed the end of March 25th. We received proposals through that RFP process. The evaluation committee is currently evaluating. We have identified a potential provider that we are going to recommend. Unfortunately, and I apologize because I know how frustrating this is, I can't share that with you until our board report is publicly posted, which will be April 28th. So until then, I'm sort of in a confidentiality phase of the competitive procurement process. But we have identified a provider. It's going to be posted publicly on our website, that board report, on April 28th, and we'll be going to our board on May 5th. There's information on our website if people want to call in in support of it or with other comments. I'm going to hope for support, but other comments that people might want to share as well. That is available at our board meeting, and there's information on our site, and I'll drop a link in the chat when I'm done talking about how to access and where to access that information. And then the county is going through their process of procuring services. I think what is particularly valuable in this project is the coordination on program modeling that's been happening between the city, the county, and the Housing Commission, and we're still finalizing that, and that will be reflected in our board report as well. But the on-site services from the county are extensive, and we're really happy to see that. And I will say, as one of the leaders in working on the program model, the importance of the positive impact on the community and the conversations that we have had over the last several months, both before the harm reduction shelter came up and since then, has definitely been something that I've thought about a lot in regards to community impact and how we be good neighbors in that space. And we've written in some additional resources specifically around that important critical part and what it means to create like positive impact in that environment. So I listened to a lot of the conversations, honestly, that we had when you came on site when it first opened, some of the conversations we've had separately offline, some of us, and the conversations in this meeting. So that's actually affected the front end of the program model as we've been working through design. So I want to share that with you. And I know that I believe the county, either Chair Fletcher or some from his team, from his behavioral health team, and the city are planning to come back to your next meeting to do a presentation, I believe. And obviously I'll be here too.
So just as a quick follow-up, I was under the impression this was a county project, but it sounds like the Housing Commission and the city are significantly involved.
It's a partnership between the county, the city, and the commission as sort of an operator on behalf of the city. So we do most of the city's contract administration. So it's county, city, commission.
Okay.
And then at least two service providers.
And at this presentation at our next meeting, will there, which unfortunately I won't be here for, but that's okay, will there be a discussion about, you mentioned positive impacts on the community, which I'm having a hard time believing there's going to be any positive impacts, but will there be a plan or a discussion about how to minimize negative impacts, what you're going to do to minimize negative impacts on the community?
Yes, we'll go into that in much more detail, and it will probably be, well, obviously we'll have I think our electeds here providing a lot of good information, but when we get down into the weeds, you'll get me.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Judy, take it away.
Hey, thank you. Kathy asked quite a few questions. They were on my mind as well. So for the sake of clarity for anybody that's on this call that may not know, we are talking about the 120 bed tent facility that is being discussed. Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, so the chair
Okay.
announced in the state of the county address,
Right.
the facility that they were placing, this tent structure that they were placing on the parking lot of the psychiatric facility.
Right, and I just wanted for clarity, because I see some names that I'm not sure who, that I'm not sure who they are on the call, so I wanted to make sure.
Yes.
And also for clarity, so the site has been selected and it's a done deal. It's going to happen regardless of the input of this group and or the citizens that have to be exposed to it.
I would say it would be inappropriate for me to respond to that because I don't make those decisions. This
I
is really
understand.
the county making the decision on the site. So I would want them to be able to represent their position on that.
Right. Well, I'm just asking if, because I don't know who else to ask on this call in this meeting context, if the site selection is a done deal. So you're saying you don't know for sure?
I don't know for sure. It is my understanding that we're heading that direction. And I think that the county, I believe the chair mentioned the site in his state of the city address of the county address. I don't know if there's any requirements to go to Board of Supervisors or anything like that. I apologize. I can't represent the county's position on that.
Right, and I don't expect you to. I'm
Yeah.
just asking
Yeah,
questions because they're on our minds.
Yeah.
Because
sure, of course, of course.
as
I don't
Kathy
wanna put-
mentioned,
I don't
I'm
want to put
sorry.
Rebecca on the spot too much, but she is our
Okay.
county representative now. And so Rebecca, I don't know if you can weigh in with a yay, nay, or defer to some other time. We'll call that defer to some other time, but
I would think so.
yeah.
Well, and I know that they're going to be here for next month too. So
Correct. Yeah, and
Right.
that was one thing I wanted to bring your attention is that we will have a full comprehensive presentation from the proponents of that structure at our next meeting on May. I
Yeah,
think, 17th.
unfortunately, I also will not be here, so I hope we record it. And also, Lisa, if you could put in the chat those links and information, you know, for people who might want to weigh in, because I've had several residents in the past week come up to me and express concern because they've heard that our committee supports, you know, our group, planning group supports this as a whole, and that's not true. And so I want to make sure that anything out, you know, that's being out there reflects accurately, and that people have a place and a way to go and see what's going to happen. There's a lot of residents here who are very, very concerned about the city. They look at it as dumping more homeless people right up the street from us. We already are overrun, you know, in our community. It's stressful. It's diminishing the quality of life for senior citizens here. And then, you know, there's also on the other side behind Sports Arena on the other side there of Midway, there are families. There's, you know, it's in relation to other districts in the community, it is a smaller residential area and you know, more in proportion, more commercial. However, you know, being the place where the city keeps wanting to put all these people is very stressful to the quality of life here. And I'm, you know, and for me, I'm going to an event on Friday night and I almost feel like I have to get an Uber to go 1 block to the sports arena because of what I have to walk through. And I never know who's out there. And I'm not easily scared, but there's like a lot of crazy people, you know, you just walking to the store in the daytime. So, you know, there is a big concern. And that's why I'm asking the question.
yeah, and to your point, you're right. There's a lot of challenges already there. So so that's something to think about when we're trying to, you know, connect people to resources.
Right.
Is having
Right. And I know,
resources
you
that
know,
can
we need a
connect them to.
place and there needs
Right.
to be a way to help people. I'm not uncompassionate.
No,
I
I
just
understand.
feel like in the 8 years I have lived in the Midway here,
Mm.
the city just keeps, you know, coming at us with more and more. And then when it gets a little better, they do it again. And it's really frustrating. And the quality of life matters to everybody. It doesn't matter where you live.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. It doesn't matter where you live, and to a large degree, quality of life, you know, can impact both housed and unhoused as well, right? Because
Exactly.
obviously, living unsheltered is not working for people either.
No, it doesn't. No.
Well,
And not everybody
Anyway.
engages the same way. And I know that.
Right.
I know
Yeah.
that, you know, just like in the housed population, there's a spectrum of need and a spectrum of behaviors.
Exactly.
And it's
Right.
the same thing in the unsheltered population. So I completely understand that. I did drop the link to our
Okay.
commissioners meeting in the chat. The board report will post on the 28th of April, so it's not up there yet, but there's also information on this page that I dropped in the chat that shows how to call in, how to submit comment, things of that nature, so that you're aware of that. I never shy away from that. I think it's really important for the community to know when items are coming to our board that may impact them, how they can contact and provide information, you know, whether it's positive, negative, just concerns, awareness, you need to know that that's available. And so you'll find everything you need right there. If you don't find what you're looking for, I'm going to also drop, I know I generally do this every time, but I'm going to also drop my email in the chat. So you have that as well.
Right. And that all can be shared with anybody in the community as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. last call for questions for Lisa. Seeing none, I think we can move on to our next item, which is an informational item from the Neighborhood Next team. So I see Zach. Does anyone need like screen share authorization?
I do.
I do. There we go.
Please.
Let's see. We can do that. We should have that now. And I'd say without further ado, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you. Let me start to share my screen. Before I do that, I just want to say hi to everybody. Good to be here. I think we last spoke to you at the end of last year, 2021, as we were just starting this process. We're excited to be here, and we really have three goals here. We want to intro you to our team. We want to give you a chance to learn a little bit more about Gel, who's one of the designers and really focused on creating great neighborhoods. And then we'd like to walk you through our proposal. And obviously as a part of that, give a chance to answer or ask questions or answer anything that comes up with you all. So I'm joined today. I'm just going to run this through, and then everybody's going to have a chance to introduce themselves. I'm joined by city thinkers, Diego Velasco, Gel, Gigo Tomaso, and Laura Johnson is on as well. Malick Infill, Andrew Malick, Wakeland Housing, Rebecca Louie, and Community Housing Works, Sean Spear. So with that, I'm going to start sharing my screen. And I hope everybody can see it all right. Can everybody see the blue page? I'm seeing heads nodding. So just as an overview to who we are, we're 4 companies founded and headquartered in San Diego. We employ nearly 1,600 people. We've developed 22,000 plus units, and we've got about $2.5 billion in assets under management. We also manage about 53,000 homes, and a good portion of those, 17,000 of those, are affordable. We've got about 5 decades of investing locally, so we're very invested in the San Diego community. With that, I'm just going to hand it off to Sean with Community Housing Works to talk a little bit more about what they do.
And good afternoon, everybody, again. So yes, Community Housing Works, as Zach alluded to, and really for the entire team, we are all locally based. I like to refer to CHW as being born and raised here in San Diego. We are an organization that actually started off as 3 separate organizations that came together more than 30 years ago around supporting people in need of housing solutions, particularly for low-income people. Our emphasis is on not only providing a roof over people's heads, and a quality one at that, but also a deep investment in their futures through the suite of resident services that we provide. And our resident services are focused on education outcomes, on financial stability and opportunities for folks to build wealth to eventually achieve their overall family goals. And lastly, health and well-being outcomes as well, particularly focused on preventive care for seniors. So as I mentioned, our developments, we have 43 all total throughout the state. 38 of which are within San Diego County. We have all total a little over 3,700 units, housing close to 10,000 individual residents. Most of our work is on the family and working family housing developments for very low income, sometimes extremely low income as well. But we also are active in terms of the development process, and we have 1,400 units in the pipeline today, which we are expecting to deliver before 2025. The thing that I think you want to take away is that we are rooted in success outcomes when it comes to both the residents as well as it comes to building affordable housing. We invest in both new housing construction as well as purchasing existing affordable housing and preserving it for the long term, or looking where we can take advantage of market rate housing that then can be converted to affordable. Main things is that we serve a gamut of, and as you'll find with Wakeland as well, we serve a gamut of populations and have experience really securing not only local funds, but also state and federal funds, as well as private funds for the development of affordable housing. So at that point, I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca from our partners at Wakeland Development.
Yeah, hi everyone. Sorry, I think I have a slide.
Yep.
So hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Louie. I'm Wakeland's Vice President and Chief Operating Officer. Wakeland has been around since 1999. We're like 23 years old, I think. I've been there 17 of those years. So we have a long-standing staff. We've all been here in San Diego a long time. We've built over 7,500 homes, affordable homes, in 53 affordable housing communities, serving over 39,000 people. We're partnering with this group because we work closely with ConAm and CHW, and we're very like-minded in that we really care about housing. We really care about doing it right. We care about the people who live in our homes. And I think we're just known to just build beautiful communities that are assets to the community. Next slide. So we do a couple of kinds of housing. We do a lot of family housing. That was kind of our bread and butter for a long time. Here's some pictures of our family homes. The next one. And then what we've been doing a lot of lately is supportive housing as well. So I always listen to these conversations because there's not a community meeting that I go to around this state where homelessness is not the top thing on people's minds. You're seeing it definitely in your community. I just was driving through the other evening to go to the sports arena and definitely saw some things. As with any beach communities, any urban communities, downtown, wherever you go, this is the top thing on people's minds. And people always ask me, what's the solution? Well, the solution is supportive housing. I think it's the only one, which is housing that is affordable, but also is built with services to keep people successfully housed. So we've been doing a lot of that as well. We do a lot of senior focused supportive housing, bringing seniors in off the streets, as well as for just adults. And then once they're there, we provide really meaningful services because we want people to thrive in our housing. We want them to come in and be able to have success in whatever their goals are in life. So we do a lot of adult enrichment programs, youth services. We bring them together as a community. Our communities are just really great places to live. So with that, I will turn it over to Andrew.
Thank you. My name is Andrew Malick. My company is Malick Infill Development, and I have really focused on delivering that missing middle housing. And so the project that I'll be presenting to you here, next slide, is called Parko. There's a project that was won by award. There was a competition, a public competition to design a project that would be a catalyst for sort of their downtown specific plan. Next slide. The project is unique in that all of the units within the project were delivered without subsidy, yet we're able to keep the rents between 80 and 110% AMI. The majority of the project is actually sort of smaller studios. They're about 400 square feet in size. And then we also have co-living, which is, which I'll talk about a little bit more. Go ahead, next slide. The project is mixed use. We really focused on authenticity with this project. And what I mean by that is we wanted it to feel like it fit into the neighborhood. And our method for doing that in National City was to be able to attract local businesses. So we designed our retail spaces to be small, have a lower price point, and therefore we have local businesses and restaurateurs that are opening up shop in our space. Next slide. I'm an architect by background. We took a lot of time and energy to make beautiful building. We pride ourselves on delivering something that the whole community is proud of. Next slide. We do public art on our projects. Next slide. We consider our projects sort of the entire building itself part of the home. So when you deliver smaller spaces, you want to make sure that you're delivering a luxury experience. Just because you're paying a lower rent doesn't mean you can't afford to have nice things. Next slide. So here's an example of one of the interiors of our 400 square foot unit. This is the furnished unit. There's a Murphy bed that's behind the couch, but it's a very comfortable unit. And next slide. And here's an example of our co-living units. These also are fully furnished. We're delivering bedrooms in these units where you share with roommates for under $1,000 a month to start. If you want your own private bathroom, you pay a little bit more. Next slide. And as you can see, we have lots of great outdoor amenity spaces on the roofs. Next slide. Here's our roof deck looking back down at downtown San Diego. So the best view of downtown San Diego is from National City. You guys should come take a look. Next slide. And here you can see there's our roof deck. I think that's it. Maybe one more. Okay, I'll hand it over to Kiko.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm Kiko Di Tommaso. I am Director of Urban Development at GAL, California. And we have here just a couple of slides to tell you a little bit more about the work that we do. Next slide, Zach. So we are an international group of architects, but also social scientists. We're very interdisciplinary in our approach and in the way in which we look at what we do, which is neighborhood making, as we call it. Next. We are building on the legacy of Jan Gehl, Danish architect, who was really a pioneer in understanding the way in which we could look at public life in cities as a way to inform great urban design and urban planning. And to the next slide. And building on the legacy, we are really advising clients, both public and private, across the world about the way in which they can improve the quality of life of their neighborhoods. We have a very strong presence here in California, and we have also offices in New York and back in Europe in Copenhagen. Next. We proudly say that a master plan for us, when we work on a master plan, we do it in a way that is a little bit different in the way it results in a specific product, but also in the way in which it is done, the way in which it is made. Next, that is going to be looking a little different, but also is going to be executed in a different way. Looking different for us means really bringing quality of life at the fore, focusing on that by the creation of a very healthy and vibrant public space system, and really curating all aspects of urban life as we think about the neighborhood. Done in a different way means really in deep collaboration with all of the people that live in the area and building coalition across stakeholders. Next. So we are able, and we do go beyond the very site in which we're working on. GAL is very data driven. We understand that every site has to be understood in its context. We understand that many of the sites where we work on have great challenges that actually depend on broader regional patterns. So for us, it's very important to understand what those patterns are. Just jumping in this conversation, joining this meeting, I heard you talking about the many challenges with homelessness that we see in many cities across the US. These are big patterns. And so we have to understand how to go beyond the site if we want to solve the problem at the scale of the site. Next. But also, and here are some examples of this kind of broader regional studies on programs, on mobility patterns that we do as a way to start our process. But also, if you go to the next slide, Zach, we have over the years learned ways to really connect at a very simple level with communities and bringing the communities into the planning process. Next. We have become expert to talk to all the people that need to be involved in the process, and finding a way to really explain very simple, good urban design principles so that they can be really relatable and can resonate with the very needs and desires of the communities, regardless of the different geographies in which we work. Next. Another thing that is really fundamental in any of our plans is this idea of really bringing public space at the heart, starting by designing a vibrant system of public open spaces, which become the armature of our projects. A lot of projects, unfortunately, put so much attention on the creation of the buildings, and what happens is that the spaces in between buildings are really leftovers, and you have to hope for the best for those spaces to function in the way in which we hope them to function. We start by really thinking about the open space, and then from there, looking at the architecture and the different programs that will be inside the building. Next. Some examples of project of ours, and this can have great attention for the public space system. Next. And lastly, this is probably the greatest legacy of our firm. We are expert in understanding the human scale of architecture. And I think that many cities across the world, many cities across America, and especially on the West Coast, are now going back to this idea of walkability as a fundamental principle, access to amenities, access to services, ability to move across your neighborhood, to be able to do all of the things that you need to do just by walking, just by biking, as well as connecting with the other many destinations across the metropolitan region in a way that is easy and efficient. We really pride ourselves in understanding how we can reinstill that human scale in neighborhoods. How can we work on the street level, on the ground level, on the activation of ground floors to keep and to make neighborhoods that are safe, that are active, that are vibrant. Next. To conclude, yes, here are some photos from project of ours, and then to the next slides. To conclude, I just want to bring your attention toward this idea that actually working on a project like this is in fact, and you can go to the next slide, Zach, is in fact, to work on a project like this, it is in fact necessary to have a holistic approach, to understand we're not just building housing, we're not just building commercial space, we are in fact building a neighborhood, and we are nurturing a community. And we have to be very aware of the implications of all of our choices when it comes to the culture of the place, to the economy activity in the place, to the sense of place and the sense of community, to the implication that our choices, thinking about the implication that our choices have on traffic and mobility, understanding which way we are or we are not pushing the envelope of environmental design in this momentous climate crisis that we're living. And of course, we remain very focused on delivering the best architectural quality. I think Andrew showed us some great images of what can be done without breaking the bank. Next. For us, public life is the very glue of all of these facets, of all of these dimensions that make a neighborhood great. We start by working on this idea of fostering good public space in order to foster good public life, knowing that public life will help us, good public life will help us achieve all of these great things that we're trying to achieve. And then one last slide to say that we understand that neighborhood making is in fact a very incremental process. It's a very iterative process, and it is about change that happens over time, bit by bit, building on the success and reorienting the process by understanding as we go what choices can make our process even better. We're very aware of that, and we're really focused on remaining involved in our project so that we can steer them as we go, knowing that implementation toward build out is a long process that needs to be done responsibly and adaptively. Thank you.
Thanks, Gigo. Guess we've got, I didn't know if you want to touch on any of these pieces.
I don't know how we're doing with time and how much this audience wants to get into the nitty-gritty of good urban planning, but these are some simple diagrams that we've prepared for the project to talk a little bit about the kind of neighborhood making that we are envisioning. This idea that the fine grain, the human scale is what really instill life into places, going from the big scale of what you have on site to the smaller scale, going from the monofunctional to the multifunctional, from the repetition of the same function to this kind of mix and diversity, and to a kind of automobile dominated landscape, to something that is really alive because as active ground floors, rightly sized plazas, and enough activity to support that life that then makes neighborhoods more lively and therefore safer. Maybe let's end on that, just because when I joined the conversation, I heard you were in the midst of a difficult conversation on what happens, right? When you don't have perception of safety. We tackle our projects thinking that it is in fact a healthy and lively neighborhood life that really can, more than anything else, generate a sense of safety, and therefore our projects bring activity back to places as a way to move in that direction. And now, yes, Zach, for real, over to you so that you can continue the presentation.
Appreciate that. And we'll move quickly through these. I think some folks have seen some of these slides already, so it's not entirely new. My biggest regret is we're on Zoom and it's hard to see everybody's faces, and I always really prefer to see people's faces. So I apologize for that, but we'll do our best to put this, put a little bit of energy through the internet towards you all. You know, our starting point here is creating a neighborhood, and I think that was the beginning of what we tried to do. That's why we engaged, we sought Gail out and some other folks, and that's why we're named what we are, and that's been a theme throughout. And why is that the case? We looked at the history of this place. We looked all the way back to, you know, original settlers in the San Diego region and how this area was used as this really incredible connection to nature and a place that people built culture, and they thrived here. The spirit of St. Louis was built here, right? Old Town. And it's got this tremendous history of innovation and a real asset to the entire city of San Diego. It's really the heart of San Diego culture. And that, again, is this core piece of what the Midway is to us and to our team. But for some reason over time, we chose to wall off the area with freeways and choke it with traffic and streets. And so it goes from kind of a green area connected to nature, or a blue area full of innovation, to a red area, which is you have to take an Uber for 1 block because you're afraid for your safety. Or you can't even get a block because of the amount of traffic, right? And so it kind of lost some of its vibrance. There's homelessness. There's missing infrastructure there that's so critical for all of us. But there's still these traces of character and culture that thrive, that still come through, right? And so I think the other piece of this, we believe really strongly that there's a beating heart in this neighborhood, and that's what Gigo was speaking to. building around the things that are so special about the Midway today. It's there, and it will make it a better place in the future as we layer in the components that are missing that will make it a great neighborhood. And that's where we're really focused. So we said, our vision, let's restore the Midway as a cultural heart of San Diego. Let's connect people back to nature and culture. Let's make this a place about innovation and opportunity. And let's attract people from every corner of the world. And we really believe in that. We truly believe in that, right? So what are the 5 ingredients? And I'll go quickly through these, but the first is public spaces at the heart. Gigo spoke to how important that is. We've got over 20 acres of gardens, parks, plazas, and green spaces. And the key thing that I really want you to take from this is it's an appropriate size. It's small, medium, large, and extra large spaces. It's not just another big expanse like we have at Fiesta Island, Liberty Station, or Robb Field. It's about places where you can go out your front door and sit outside with a neighbor, sit in the shade, sit in the sun. Kids can play, seniors can sit there, right? It's also this great, iconic destination. On the right is La Rambla in Barcelona. People get on planes to go spend a vacation there. That's the way we're envisioning this with the public spaces and the promenades that we're creating. It really becomes a destination. There's this great Twitter thing going around that says, where would you take somebody if they came to visit San Diego for 24 hours? And we think the answer should be right here in this place. Again, let's change our perspective and let's think that way about what's possible. 2, homes for San Diegans. So, we believe the responsible thing to do is not just develop a high number of homes here, but to really create opportunities with those homes. Andrew Malick, as you already heard, is really a forerunner in the middle income. But what we're also showing here, so we're showing a spread of available price points that shows a distribution of AMI, that's average median income, that shows nearly 50% are below 120 AMI. But the other thing we're showing is that the housing mix here, the actual 1, 2, and 3 bedroom is spread very broadly within our current program. And I think the point that we want to drive home is that this will be a new place in the community, but it will still be available to all the people who live in the community today. And it's not about rich over here, poor over there. It's about a truly integrated place for people of all ages and all cultures and all levels of income. And that is core in our design. And we believe that that's a truly different approach than is out there with other folks today. We've got a really vibrant commercial approach to this. It's about activating the ground floors. We've got markets, we've got shops, we've got outdoor spaces, we've got indoor spaces. Chuck, you're on the line, you're in there as well. But it's really about activating these places at all hours a day. And that's, again, not all hours, 18 hours a day, right? So there's times that people sleep, but it's about activation, and that creates safety. That gets people to this place, right? And that creates a real vibrance. That also creates walkability. So people don't have to get in their cars. They don't have to pollute, right? They can get to the grocery store conveniently on foot. That's what we're about. And there's a picture of it happening, right? So then there's community arts and culture, right? So we obviously have an arena here, and that's a critical component. But we've also very intentionally added a 35,000 foot cultural hub. So it's a place for kids, performances, arts, right? It's about weaving that in. And so as we think about mixed use, it's not just about putting residential over retail and calling it mixed use. It's about these culture building places that bring people together so that you can meet your neighbors, you can be a stronger community, so that you're interacting with folks that you wouldn't normally, right? And then it's going beyond the property lines, and Gigo spoke to this as well, but it's very focused. You can see in the upper right, today, Sports Arena Boulevard is this, it's really a barrier, right? We've got all these major barriers of streets, whether it's the 8 or Sports Arena Boulevard. And that's part of the strength of a group like GEL. They figure out how to break that down and make it pedestrian friendly and bike friendly so that we can get across the street. And when we do something at the sports arena site, we can also activate other areas in the entire district. So this isn't just about a one site project. This is really about creating a community out of the Midway district, right? It's about linking to the river and the river trail. It's about making that connection to transit really comfortable. And it's about getting across streets and making it about pedestrians, not cars. And again, this is just a quick diagram of how much we've thought about it. We've got literally hundreds of pages of diagrams of sketches about how we connect to other parts of the city, how we connect to transit, how do we make this about people, not cars. And so, I want to kind of leave you with this. We just kind of had a little bit of fun with it. So instead of homelessness, what if this is really about being about homes on the right? What if instead of being about dead ends, this is about destinations, right? The transformation that's possible here. And what if instead of being about vacancy, this is really about vibrancy, right? And I hope these resonate with you about where we believe this neighborhood can go. And so I just want to, I know we've been going a little bit long. I'm going to stop sharing here. But the point that I want to bring home here is, where do we sit today? Well, tomorrow there's a land use and housing committee meeting. I think all of us are familiar with the recommendation on the next step. And what we're asking for from your group, who we feel like we've been very connected to since this process began, is to give us a chance to continue to show you and prove to you and the community the depth of thinking behind this, how we can really make the most of this site and serve you. And so to do that, we're asking for your support in advancing our team, among others, for further vetting and scrutiny and questions by the city and others. Without your voice, there is a staff recommendation not to include us because of maybe perception about our position on an arena. So we're asking you guys to speak up, and it will make a difference. And we believe we can help serve you as a result. So appreciate the time. And we absolutely want to answer any questions that you guys have.
Cool. Thank you, Zach and Neighborhood Next team. Is there anyone from the board who does have a question off the top? Yeah, Kathy, go ahead.
Always Kathy. So I know, and obviously we're having a conversation after this about what our position will be in terms of comments for tomorrow's meeting. And if you don't know, I have personally sent a letter to Land Use and Housing Chair. Zach, I'll forward you a copy of it. But to all of their members, it's my personal position recommending that they go further with all 5. But I guess the rub with you or against you, if I read the article in the paper correctly, was that you did not have an arena builder, operator, or something on your team as it presently exists. Is that about correct?
Well, look, I'm glad you asked. Let me just address it directly for you, Kathy.
Okay.
You are correct that I believe the staff report said that, but we just want to clarify that. We have actually 2 partners on our team. One is PCL Construction, who is
built world-class arenas, pro arenas, renovated arenas across the country and internationally. And the second is Crossroads, who's an arena partner with a resume for overseeing arena developments. We've also included a significant investment in the existing arena to improve it based on their feedback. So we actually have a clear path on the arena in terms of investing in it, improving it, creating a truly world-class experience that can attract the best shows. And we have a clear path to finance that and move it forward. So we think there was a little bit of a misunderstanding about kind of how that would happen. It's all the more reason why we really want an opportunity to kind of get into further scrutiny about what we've submitted. Because, again, I think there was a misunderstanding there, and there really hasn't been an opportunity to communicate back about that.
Good. Well, good luck.
Okay. Yeah, that was probably my big elephant in the room question as well is, yes, we all saw that staff report come out, I think early last week, well aware of the fact that there's a meeting tomorrow. This planning group has been involved in this conversation for years now. And so one of the things that we want to make sure, and I don't want to speak for the group, but at least me going into this is that this entire process yields the highest and best use outcome. So to the extent that we can ensure that, I think that's what this group is here to do. But if there's any other questions from the committee or from the general public for Zach and his team, we're open to hearing those now.
And DK, if I can, I just want to piggyback on that. I think what's unique about this process, and all of us are witnessing it, all of us are a part of it, is we're combining two different things. We're combining a master plan and an arena, right? And I think we have an opportunity to get the best of both, right? And the two don't necessarily have to be linked up. And so again, we would encourage this group, and we'll say it to everyone in the community of San Diego, we think the right thing to do is figure out the right master plan for this site, one that really serves the community, and then incorporate the very best arena option within that. We don't have to settle for anything less than the best on both fronts. Right now, the process, that's part of the challenge, because admittedly it is a state-run challenge, right? Or state-run process that right now that's a little bit more challenging than maybe normally it could be. And so again, that's the piece that we want to underscore for everybody on this group, that I really think we can. Again, if we go forward, we have an opportunity to prioritize a master development and then bring in the right group that fits within that without making any sacrifices, right? That's a little bit different than the setup now.
Totally. That makes sense. And I guess maybe just to drill down into it and to cut to the chase, do you, I mean, how confident are you of a decision tomorrow that leans in your favor?
I'm not confident at all. That's why I'm here today. And I'm asking you, I mean, again, it's been very important to us to be as connected as possible with you, the local planning group. I think we've done that in good faith throughout this process. And I'm not confident. And we need your help to step up and to speak up. I do think if you do that, it will make a big difference. And I do think if you do that, we will be able to advance, but only if you guys do that, right? And I mean that.
Fair enough. All right, last call, questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, I think we can close this item. Thank you, Neighborhood Next team.
Yeah,
We'll
appreciate
certainly
it.
be in touch.
Good to see everybody. Thank you.
Always. Cool.
All right.
Okay, so, yeah, thank you. Moving on. So our next item sort of drafted as a potential action item, right? There's no mandate that we do take a vote, but I drafted it as action item to discuss and or approve official comments from this body for that land use and housing meeting tomorrow. Obviously, just to kind of take a step back and to recap, this obviously has been years in the making. The whole Surplus Land Act has been, I think, formally in process since October when they initiated their notice of availability. I think 7 different bids came in, 5 of them were deemed responsive. And now sort of as this project or this process, excuse me, is moving forward. Tomorrow's meeting is the first full city council meeting or a committee meeting whereby any of the bids are being evaluated, and what they're looking to do is to move from 5 down to 3. So the 2 groups that were, I guess, left off the advanced shortlist was Neighborhood Next, who just presented today, as well as Discover Midway, who presented last month, right? That's Jessica's team with Brookfield and Co. What I wanted to do with this time today for the board members who are here is discuss what our position truly is. If we do want to, and I don't think it's appropriate for us to select one group to necessarily support, but I do think that as the city's recognized land use advisory body that we are, we do have all of the sort of standing and status in the world to comment on the process, right? And to seek that outcome that we think is in the best interest of the community. So I know you are, or I think everyone who's here from the board was present at our in-person town hall a few weeks ago. And yeah, I kind of wanted to turn it over to the group. I've taken, I guess I'll just to preface this is, Kathy sent a personal letter. I went ahead and drafted something that we could use as a template for today's conversation. But before I pull that up, I wanted to just get response and feedback from the group, from Judy, from Chuck, from Jason, on your overall reflections on the overall process, and then more specifically, if we want to weigh in tomorrow, what should we say? So yeah, Chuck, take it away.
So I too, it's important that I disclose that I have sent a letter as well, but on behalf of myself and my business, we too believe that it's best to keep all 5 teams in the running, at least for now, because we believe that there's some additional financial analysis that could be done by the outside third-party consultant that the city has hired to advise on this project. And so I'd like to see all 5 teams go to that outside consultant before the city starts to cull down the list from 5 to 3. So that's my personal opinion.
Awesome. Thank you. Jason, Judy, Amy.
I agree that they should have just moved forward with all 5. I honestly, I'm not going to say exactly why I feel this way, but it's a whole lot of reasons, not just related to this project in itself, this process, this place where we are, but to the last few years, 6 years I've been paying attention to this stuff. I just feel like the city is never as transparent as they should be. I feel like there's always other agenda that are taking place, and it's disappointing. And I feel like this is being, for lack of a better word, maybe fast tracked all of a sudden, the whole housing thing that, that caused this to be, change, step back and have new proposals and stuff. It wasn't necessarily a bad thing in that I think we might have some better outcome because we have more input and more thought and more time, but we're losing, it's like, hurry up so we can do this after the whole process was stalled by the city. They want to just shove it in, shove it forward. And I feel like that's at least my interpretation of that. For what it's worth, it's, it looks to me like they've got an agenda. I personally, I almost feel like they've already decided who they want. I don't know that to be true, but it feels like that's the kind of stuff happening, and it's disappointing. And, so I'm hoping that input matters. I agree that we should not, just as in the case of the NAVWAR, redevelopment. I don't believe as a group it's best to choose somebody, but to give input as to what we hope will be considered by the city to be most relevant, most important. I know I have a list of a few ideas on that, none in particular order, except the main thing is that whoever's chosen and whatever they do, they being the city, is that it supports the approved Midway plan update as it was approved, no exceptions, as it was adopted. I know that plan is, it can be changed. I understand that. We knew that when it was approved. But I really will be upset if the city moves forward and makes a lot of changes to our plan update that we worked so many years so hard on, so many people, all the effort, and they adjust the plan update so they can do what they want to do. It's just, it's like giving the whole community the middle finger. That's how I feel right now, just to say it as nice as I can. But it needs to support that community plan as it was approved. Maybe the most minimal changes to accommodate, but not to accommodate, a radical change and a diversion of that plan. And the housing density, I don't want to see our Midway district 140, 40 acres we're talking about. I don't want to see it crammed with half or more of the whole increase that's on that plan. And I think we're very, very vulnerable to that happening. And that is going to be a nightmare. That it's going to be just, I think it's unacceptable for them to try to do that. Parking's got to be adequate for both residents and visitation. One of those plans has 3 different venues of entertainment. 3 venues in addition to housing. Can you imagine? I was, it's not about whether it's soccer or entertainment or whatever. It's about land use that's appropriate. One thing I do like about the group that just was, the verbiage and some of the talking points is that it has to be appropriate. The housing needs to be appropriate. The entertainment venue needs to be appropriate, and it all needs to fit with the overall feel and look and vision for the Midway community per the plan. And I think we're going to be, I don't know, it's just a gut feeling. I think the city's trying to drive it away from that and make adjustments. And in an ode to Walter, remember that guy Walter, Kathy? Do you remember? The guy who used to the old guy who used to come to the meetings, and every time, and Jason, I think you remember him, I can see your head nodding. Remember, he used to always talk about evacuation, and he was so concerned in that community update plan when we were having those conversations about evacuation routes. Well, you know what, I said to him one time, I said, Walter, don't think that nobody's paying attention, because it's a concern of mine. And I think we also have to always keep that in mind, that whatever we do with that sports arena property, that those acreages, we have to be careful that we're not overloading and that we're cutting off access. I mean, it may be a small part of it, but it's really important. And, the height of the residential buildings, if they cram 5,000 plus residents in addition to, 3 venues or whatever we end up with, what is that going to look like? Is it going to feel like New York City, where those skyscrapers, I know we won't be skyscrapers, but, Naval was talking about 35 stories. Okay. Do we really want that? I don't. I mean, I don't know what it's going to look like, but those are just expressing some of my concerns. I have others, but those are the primary.
Totally. Thank you, Judy. I think I definitely have jotted down the notes that I didn't already include, but everything you've said is in line with what I'm drafting as well. So Kathy, I see your hand up, and then we'll go to Jason.
Okay, so I just want to, Judy, with all due respect, and I totally respect your opinion, I just want to add a few comments about it. The city, this is not about what the city wants, and the city has not made a decision. What the city is doing is following the letter of the Surplus Land Act, and at this point, it's very much a what does Sacramento want, not what the city of San Diego wants. I point that out in my letter to them that I sent today, and I sent it as a personal letter as a member of the community because we have not discussed it. We have not taken a position. I realize that I have a voice as a community advocate, and so I decided to personally take a position, not in favor of any one group. I took a position in favor of continuing to include all 5 groups. And I will just give you the highlights of what I said because I think they're relevant and consistent with, I think, where we want to go. And I will offer them. If it's not what the group wants, it's okay. But I pointed out several groups, several comments. I said, how do we avoid another real estate mistake without a complete financial analysis of all 5 qualified bidders? So we all know about 101 Ash. We all know about, all of the problems that the city has had. And my understanding is that there has been no financial analysis yet of any of the groups. And that's part of the reason they want to narrow it to 3 is so that they can just do the analysis on 3. But I think that's wrong because if they just do it on 3, they may be leaving out a group that is the most financially capable of pulling this effort off. So that's number 1. I've asked what is each bidder's timeline for the project? When would the first homes come online? How long would the sports arena be out of service? What public subsidies are available? How long is it going to take to get them? How long a project is this going to be? I don't want to see this be a 20-year project. It needs to happen faster. So that all goes to financial capability. If people are applying for grants and applying for subsidies, and that takes a period of time, that time has to go into that calculation. So that's the next one. I've said we will not singularly solve San Diego's affordability issues with this project. So, it needs to comply with the 2018 community plan update. It needs to be appropriate for Midway. And if 10,000 units is what we've planned for, how does what does it mean for the rest of the community? So I've asked that question. I said we need to do what is right for San Diego, not just for Sacramento. We need to make the city and the people who are in a decision-making process need to make a decision and then go to Sacramento and tell Sacramento why it is the right decision for San Diego, not vice versa. The people in Sacramento don't live here. They have no vested interest in us. We have the vested interest. We need to fight for what's right. And finally, I said we need to do what's right for Midway. We are a blighted community. We have a whole bunch of problems. I even mentioned that we've got a very significant senior population living in Midway. We need to do what's right for the seniors. We need to do what's right for the entire community. And that's what I said. So those are my primary points. I think it's critical that the city analyze. I wouldn't want to see the city go forward with a group because they offered the most number of affordable units and find out after they've eliminated everybody else that this group can't pull it off. And we haven't they haven't done that work yet. So I don't see how it is feasible to make that. I feel very much like Chuck. I don't see how it's feasible to make those, those cuts. I understand why they're doing it. I believe that they're moving forward at an escalated pace. I mean, nobody wants this done more than me. Believe me, nobody wants this more than yours truly. But I also think, it's hopefully the 30-foot height limit is going to go back on the ballot in November. Somebody's going to have to pay for that ballot measure. And so part of what they're doing is trying to get to a point where they have a partner who will help with that process, with the funding of that. If we're still considering 5 groups in August, September, none of them are going to want to step up and help fund that campaign. So that's what's really driving the urgency. And I understand that, but I also think having the right partner is critical.
Amen. Thank you. Jason?
Yeah, and I would just say what everybody's touching on is just, but from what I understood, I didn't read the full, release or reasoning behind it. I thought it was the simple version was that these two groups want to keep the existing arena, and we think that's a bad idea. Or yeah, they don't know how to do the entertainment part, but I think that could obviously easily be figured out by any of these groups. And timelines, can they perform? Have they done something like this before? They have the wherewithal, they have the funding. And again, I think that resume, should be, weighted much higher than it seems that it has been. I'm not just saying what's the biggest group, but again, who seems like they're going to perform, has thought it out, and are going to really, again, consider the community plan and just be, be thoughtful. And again, I haven't heard any deal breakers from any of these, but if really just those two they scrapped were just because the arena, either operator partners or lack thereof, or just keeping the old one because it's maybe makes more sense financially, whatever it is. But I don't see how that should disqualify those two groups if that really was the reason at this stage,
Agreed. And my understanding of this whole process is that, yeah, they're not committing to any one group tomorrow, but it's
Right.
the overall process. And I think what Kathy just lined up, I think is right. It almost feels like there's an artificially accelerated timeline now because they're trying to drill down to that singular group in advance of November. So I get it, but I also think that whilst we are capable in one hand of understanding what the city is trying to do, I think on the other hand, we need to recognize our responsibility as this planning group for this neighborhood, for this community, and try to ensure that the best outcome is where we lined up. And I think the only way you do that is by evaluating all of the options, all of the opportunities, all of the component pieces, and then ultimately, making an informed decision. So that's where I think. I mean, Amy, if you have anything else to contribute now, I'd say now is the time. But I would just say to sum up what we've all said is I think we're all on the same page of as far as the action for tomorrow, and I think this group's comments for tomorrow's action. The recommendation from the staff report, which I did just drop into the chat, if anyone hasn't had a chance to see it yet, the recommendation is to move forward with just the 3. And I think our comments will be to move forward with all 5 for a variety of different reasons. So I'm happy to, like I said, draft. Well, I've already sort of drafted a letter and I'll share it with you guys now so you can kind of just see. For those of you who participated in our Naval process last year, it's very similar to what we put together last time around, even insofar as just the framing, right? So this is the group, here's what we are. I left this blank in case we do vote, don't vote, but background, right? Where are we? Community plan update from 2018, 11-year process. Community plan is a guiding document. Here's the real visionary pillars of our actual community plan. And then below this sort of cut line is our experience, right? So we've we've been talking about this for multiple times, right? I counted, I went back and looked at our different agendas. We've had 7 different meetings, including that town hall meeting where at least one group, usually more than one group, is here presenting, talking, and sort of dominating the conversation. So I kind of get into it and say, recognizing that the action in front of the committee is to accept, reject, or amend the recommendation from the staff report. Following is a summary of the outstanding questions from the community, right? And I'll send this around for everyone. I'm happy to make any edits. I don't think this is final, to be fair. I've been drafting it over the last couple of days. I'll get it done before tomorrow's meeting. But if anyone wants to add or send me something that they think needs to be included, like I said, Judy, I've jotted down some of what you said, so I'll fill in the rest of some of your comments here. But broadly speaking, my conclusion is that the Midway-Pacific Highway Community Planning Group requests that the Land Use and Housing Committee moves forward with all 5 responsive bids through rigorous additional analysis that includes financial feasibility of each proposal and measures the holistic impacts to the community going forward. And so I feel like we've got the core of what we've all just discussed. I kind of took an educated guess. But I think at this stage, if everyone's comfortable with what's here, or if anyone wants to make any additions or amendments or subtractions even, definitely open to hearing that community feedback here from the board. But what I'd like to do is solicit a motion from this group to approve this finalized letter once I'm done with it, submit that as commentary on behalf of the planning group in advance of tomorrow's meeting, which starts at 1 p.m. and I can drop the Zoom link for that meeting in there as well.
Can you, this is Judy, could you please, because we haven't had a chance to really look at this and review it and give it consideration, and we're on a real tight timeline. What, where do you, is there any place in there where you have, and I know you said you made some notes. So obviously, I think we all agree, it seems like the input has been that this needs to support the Midway Community Plan update.
Correct.
With regard to density, that's appropriate. Is that in there already? Are you going to add? Where's that? Let's see what that is.
It's all right there.
Okay, yeah, because I haven't had a chance to really read it.
Now's the time.
So.
Now's the time.
So while Judy's reading that, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion. And that motion is that the board approve this letter in concept and authorize DK to finalize it and submit it and speak on behalf of the board and the board's position at Land Use and Housing tomorrow.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
And will you be, I'm just asking questions about this while I'm thinking and looking at this. So are you going to be adding any verbiage about parking in here?
Parking, yeah. Let me add that into this traffic component here. Do you have like maybe a blurb that you'd like me to?
Well, the parking, basically the parking needs to be adequate for the residents and for the event, the proposed venue attendance, because go ahead.
With all due respect, I think that's getting ahead of the process, because we're not looking at these they're not looking at these projects now of how much parking do they have. They're looking at who are they going to select to go. As I said in kind of my closing remarks at the town hall, everything that we've seen from the group today and all of the groups is not going to be what's built.
Right, of course.
There is how many ultimate units there are, what the design is going to look like, how many acres of parks we're going to end up with. None of that matters right now. What matters right now is that these groups have the wherewithal to do this, and what is the timeline to get it done. Once we get past that, then we get into, this is going to take an EIR. It's going to require its own EIR. This project will require an EIR. The EIR will deal with parking. The EIR will deal with mobility and traffic and air quality and water quality and all of those things will come later. What's important now is that the city make the right choice of partners, and they can't do that based on the information they have today.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair enough. I just, when you start thinking about all of these presentations have actually had, each one has had some really good thought, and the processes have, and some, I obviously just what you said, Kathy, is true. When as we've been presented and looked at them and considered, of course, none of them are going to be exactly like they are. Some may not even be as similar because it is about the partnership, and that's fair. And I agree. How they're doing this, the expedited way they're doing it, I know it is up to Sacramento, and they're following these rules that were shoved on us because, and I understand that, but anything to slow the process down where there's better thought given to who they get in bed with, because this is going to take a lot. This is not going to happen overnight.
No, we've got time. We've for sure got a lot of time before this ends up. But yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. Amy, I see your hand up.
I second. I just wanted to move that part along.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you, Amy. Okay. Well, we've got a motion. We've got a second. Final call for board member comment before I call the question. Hearing none, what I would say is I'll just go by roll call. Kathy, was it yay or nay?
Yay.
Yay. Judy? Okay, yes. Chuck?
Yay.
Yeah. Jason?
Yay, in favor.
Okay, thank you. Amy?
Yay.
Yay. And DK is a yay as well. And
Yay.
So yeah, cool. Thank you. I think that is officially my first action item as chair.
So DK, as we have the planning group has been allocated 10 minutes to speak tomorrow.
Correct.
And as you know, I'm not going to be able to attend either in person or virtually. But what is your plan? Are you planning to, are you going to have a presentation? Are you going to just speak? Where do you think you want to go with this?
Totally, right. And I'll zoom out just briefly for the sake of everyone else who's on this call. So obviously tight turnaround with respect to this entire process. I had a conversation with the staff of Vivian Moreno, who is the chair of this committee. And she was kind enough to offer, they always have public comment at these different meetings. Typically it's 1, maybe 2 minutes per person. But she did offer us a few minutes to speak formally as a planning group with respect to our comments and our recommendations. So now that I've sort of, like I said, drafted some talking points, or at least this is more of a letter, what I'll do, Kathy, to your question is amend the letter just so that it reads a little bit more conversationally. I'm not going to just read it word for word, but I'll basically translate that letter and all of its sentiments, all of our concerns, all of our outstanding questions into just free-form talking points. I'm not going to put together a slideshow. I'll give a high-level overview of who we are, what we're doing, how long we've been doing it, and then ultimately transition into this, what are we seeking to achieve, right? Which is at this stage, bearing in mind exactly what the decision is that's in front of the committee, which is to either accept or reject or amend the staff report's recommendation. We are going to make the ask as a planning group formally that they amend the staff report's recommendation to include further analysis of all 5 groups. And I'll wrap it up there. They gave us up to 10 minutes. I doubt I'm going to take the full 10 minutes, but it'll probably be more than the 1 or 2 minutes that ordinarily would have been there. And one thing I wanted to make sure that I made clear here today, for those of you who are members of the group, if you would like to, I plan on joining virtually. I'm not going to be able to go down there, but there is a Zoom link that they'll be sending us that we can share amongst our audience. And that way, basically, as soon as they finish the staff presentation, when they cut over to public comment, they'll queue us up first. And so we'll be the first public comment, and we'll have up to 10 minutes. So if anyone wants to join me, if anyone wants to add their voice to that, like I said, happy to have that conversation. I know it's relatively short notice, but I'll be there for sure. And anyone is welcome to join me from the group.
So DK, I would, because I'm not going to be there, I would make the request that that you express to the committee that no one wants to see this happen faster than we do.
Yeah, the timeliness.
You know, that we're not here to slow the process down to prevent progress. We're, you know, I really am concerned that, you know, about the issues that we pointed out, you know, a group, how people are going to go about funding affordable housing and what that means to a timeline is critical.
Mm-hmm.
If you know, groups that are saying we're going to, and I'm not in anybody's court at the moment, but if there are groups that are saying, well, the first thing we have to do is go in and tear down the sports arena and move it over there, and that's going to take 3 or 4 years before we can break ground on housing, that's different than saying we can get the first part of the housing up and running in 12 or 18 months or 24 months or whatever it is. So I think that phasing process is really important to understand with each of these bidders.
Groups. Agreed. And I'll make sure I call that out in the letter that I submit, and I'll make sure that I articulate that clearly when it comes to this conversation. Because agreed, right? We've been doing this for 4 years now, and we've seen zero progress. So, and that's just me, right? I can't even imagine. I think everyone else here has been doing it even longer. So, appreciate that.
I can tell you that when the Hans bought the arena some 30 years ago, the first conversation I had with Ron Hahn, Ernie Hahn's father, was, Chuck, we're building a new arena in 18 months. We want you to know so you can prepare to move your business.
Wow. How'd that go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
That's San Diego for you.
Yeah, standard.
So
Okay, well, thank you everyone. I think that wraps that item. We've got a few more minutes just to close out.
DK, real quick,
Yes,
are
yeah.
you, so you said that committee meeting is at 1 o'clock tomorrow?
Yeah, it starts at 1 p.m. tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, and you're gonna send the link out, or where's the link to that?
Yeah, I'll put that right here, right now.
I might be able to move, I have something, but I might be able to move that around. I'd really like to attend that.
Okay.
I think I can shift
do that?
that.
Yeah, give me just a second. I'll find it and I'll throw it in here. What's nice is that, like I said, it is virtual on Zoom. The one thing that I would say is they told me that the staff report itself will probably take about 60 minutes. So the meeting starts at 1. There's a couple sort of little items ahead of that, but I'd say by about 1:15 or so, 1:30 at the latest, we should be into that public comment area. What is that?
Yeah, because do you think they're gonna get, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Jason.
Oh, I was just trying to, I looked at the agenda too. It looked like there's some stuff before this.
Yeah, there's like 4 or 5 items, but they're listed.
So I don't know,
as, they're listed as what they call
consent.
Exactly.
Consent.
Yeah. So they'll batch them. They'll batch them and do it all at once.
They'll do all those at once, unless somebody from the city council decides to pull one of those items.
Correct.
Then they'll have a discussion if any of those items are pulled. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they can also rearrange the agenda too. So.
Yeah, I would say if they pull it out of consent, I think it would go in, it would drop in underneath. And so our item is the first item.
We could also call in and listen too, I guess. Going on.
2 things. One, are they doing public comment before or after the staff report?
Staff report first and then public comment.
So So if they start staff report at 1:15, then public comment will probably be around 2:15, right?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Well,
Yeah.
I also expect that after DK makes his remarks, every team will
I'm
have the
sure.
opportunity to address the committee as well. So,
I'm sure, yeah,
Right.
and I'm sure they'll be, they'll be doing their group presentations as well. I think this is, I mean, the meeting starts at 1. I'd be surprised if it's over before 4.
yeah,
Okay.
I don't expect it will be.
Yeah.
My son and I are deciding if we're gonna go in person or if we're gonna do it on Zoom. We haven't
Yeah.
decided yet. Yeah.
Same, yeah, I might go in person, but if I do, I'm bringing my computer and I'm working for most of it.
Oh, yeah, because you've ruined the rest of the day, unfortunately,
DK, I just noticed Quentin is here, so we may not have
Oh.
asked him to vote.
Quentin, hello. I did
I
see
think
him
he might have
drop
logged in after the vote. He might have missed it.
Yeah, he moved in right after the vote, but
No, I'm here. I just had to unmute.
perfect, no worries. So sorry. There was a motion followed by a second that, Kathy, you want to restate your motion or?
No.
No? Fair enough. Yeah.
You
Want me to
can restate it.
Yeah. Regarding the sports arena, there is an item at the City Council's Land Use and Housing Committee tomorrow. And we basically decided today as a planning group that the motion or the recommendation that they're considering goes towards either dropping down from the 5 groups that have been, I guess, that have submitted for the arena, dropping down to 3 and dropping 2 of them with respect to the further financial analysis. And so we feel as though that's premature. And our action today, our motion today was to submit comments formally on the record as a planning group, requesting that the city evaluate all 5 of those bids. And then also that sort of authorizing me, DK, to speak tomorrow at the committee meeting to regurgitate the same things that are in our letter. So that motion was unanimous here. And if we want to add your vote to the roster, Quentin, you can say yay if you'd like to add that.
Yay.
Yay.
There we go. Unanimous. So we'll add you to today's list. So thank you.
Roger
Judy,
that.
in the chat, I did send you the information about Union Bank, if you saw that. Otherwise, I'm happy to tell you or get you that information directly about Union Bank. You're muted, Judy.
All right. You said you put it in the chat?
I sent it to you as a private message in the
Oh,
chat.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, cool. And I've dropped in the agenda for tomorrow. So if you click that link, Judy, tomorrow, the agenda for the meeting is there. And there's a Zoom link sort of, I think it's on page 2, maybe page 3 of that agenda for tomorrow's meeting.
Okay, thank you. And Chuck, it's Albert.
I don't know Albert's last name, but he's the
But-
general, he's the bank manager.
Okay.
And that's the phone number for the bank. You wanted to know about the community room? Is that what you were asking me?
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
Cool.
Great,
We
thank
think
you.
that, I think that now that masks have been relaxed a little bit, we probably can get access to that room, I would hope.
Okay,
Yeah.
lovely.
The
Okay,
bank
cool.
is
We'll
being
draw.
bought by US Bank, so it will become a US bank within the next 2 or 3 months.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, it's quick. Okay, good to know. In the interest of time, we'll try to wrap up in the next few minutes. So regarding my CPC report, since we've last met at CPC this most recent time, we had a couple action items relating to, there was an item on local clean energy. That was a resolution that was listed as an action item. The committee took no action at that time. There was another action item listed about Build Better San Diego, which is the citywide initiative to enable what they say faster delivery of public spaces and buildings equitably and sustainably across San Diego. Similarly, no motion in support manifested from CPC. And then the last item that was discussed at our most recent meeting had to do with the update to Council Policy 600-24 and 600-9. And again, that meeting, or excuse me, that process has slowed down. There was no motion in support of that effort from Joe LaCava's office at CPC. So that's my CBC report from the most recent meeting. And as I look at this agenda, up next is the chair report. Don't really have a ton from the chair report status other than what I need to do is communicate information for all new members to the city now that we're all set up. So everyone who's a holdover from last time, business as usual, unless you've changed your physical address or unless you've changed your contact information. We've got that on record. It's mainly just Karen Anderson Thatcher that I need to check in with. She's not here today. But other than that, if you want me to update your contact information as far as the city is concerned, send that to me, please, and I will make sure that our records reflect that. Probably get that sent in the next week or two, so no rush, and I'll send out an email before I do that, just so everyone's got it. But other than that, I would say that's it for me as chair so far. If there's any new business, open to hearing that at the moment. Okay, hear it. Oh, yes. Nicole, hello.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, DK, for letting me chime in on this new business. Welcome to being chair of Midway, and appreciate all your guys' conversations and dialogue on the Midway community. I know subcommittees are still probably not a major issue, but I just wanted to highlight some major big projects. You know, the Mission Bay Bridge was talked about, and so really finding safe access into that intersection. Judy, I know you're super aware of that, difficult intersections and those connecting those communities and those residences. You also have some streets that were identified as part of Sexy Streets initiative to get resurfaced. Either perhaps maybe at the next meeting, you can agendize something that has to do with some of these projects, or perhaps you entertain a subcommittee to really dive into some of the traffic related issues there. That's just a comment, and hope it will be considered by your board, and appreciate you all for being here and your volunteer work in the community. Thank you.
Totally. Thank you very much, Nicole. I'll just make a note of that. Yeah, I did see some news about the Mission Bay Bridge. Ta-da, we're almost done, and 17 years later, something like that. But yes, no, there's definitely a couple things, and you and I can connect, Nicole, if there's anything specific that you want me to highlight in that next meeting, and we'll see if there's room on the agenda for that. Okay, that's new business. Old business, I don't have any old business. If anyone has any old business, speak now. Hearing no old business, I believe we are formally and officially adjourned as of, let's see, 4:58 on Wednesday, April the 20th. So thank
Good
you
job,
all. And
okay.
whew, yeah, Kathy, how'd I do? We're officially done. I can decompress.
You
It's
did great.
nerve-wracking.
You did great.
Good job.